and welcome to the September edition of the VJUG Live. I am Kim Fletcher, one of the VJUG organizers. If you are new here, welcome to the Virtual Java User Group. We are a global Java community, bringing you high-quality tech talks and speakers from all over the world. If you are joining us live, please say hi in the chat and let us know where you are tuning in from today. This is also where you will drop your questions throughout the session for us to give to the speaker. If you are watching this as a recording, please make sure to join the conversation over in our Slack channel and drop your questions in there, and we'll make sure we get them answered for you. So today's session will be hosted by the fabulous Marit van Dijk and your awesome speaker, Marco Behler. Welcome both. It is so good to see you. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm great. Actually, I have to say I got really pumped by the music. The music was great of the intro. It's like, yeah,
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Awesome. Well, I know there's a lot of people waiting to see this session, so I will leave you to it. Take it away.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
All right. So let me quickly introduce our speaker, Marco Coates. You have your own channel where you like to wave your hands at the camera. Can you do that for us? Yay, there we go. Marco Coates. You also have a new show on the IntelliJ IDEA YouTube channel called The Marco Show.
Yes, indeed.
Because naming things is hard, right?
Naming things is super hard. So we just thought, well, we had a couple of actually a dozen of choices, and then we just said, well, let's keep it simple, stupid. Just Marco Show, Marco Coates, yeah.
Yep. Okay. And what are you going to talk to us about today, Marco?
We're going to talk about Spring Debugger, which it sounds like a sales pitch or a marketing pitch, but I honestly think it's one of the most exciting feature releases we've brought to IntelliJ IDEA in a while when it comes to Spring Boot development, really, and debugging Spring applications, which everyone has to do sooner or later. And now that is my sales pitch. I have to, bring the question back to you, Marit. What do you think of Spring Debugger so far? Because you've also seen it quite a few times.
Yeah, I've seen it in action a few times. So I really think, like, if you work with Spring, then you've probably been confused by which beans are loaded, which properties are loaded, why are they loaded, where are they even coming from? So, if you've ever been confused by Spring, I think the Spring Debugger can be super useful. So
where do all these beans come from?
Yeah. But also, why is it this one and not that one? Why is it this property and not that one? Or how do I change it? So yeah,
Absolutely.
If you've ever had to debug it, I think making that more visual is super helpful.
Yep. Actually, I think it's a very nice segue into my presentation, which will just be a very short presentation because we're going to spend the rest of the hour with live coding, essentially. Awesome. But I wanted to show you a couple of slides. Marit, if you could bring them up, and then I'll just roughly walk you through what's going to happen in the next 45 minutes.
Okay, then I'm going to drop off and let you get to it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marit, and I'll see you soon, right? So, as mentioned before, we're going to be talking about Spring Debugger, and I want to start with a very tiny story. Where do I have to click? I was working as a consultant for a long time before I joined JetBrains. I was debugging, it's a true story, some Spring application, and I actually did have the problem, hey, where did this Spring bean come from and why? Or actually, it was some property was set, and then I booted up the application. It was a different value that I expected. And I had a colleague, Andreas. I looked at him and said, Andreas, where the hell do I have to click to find out the actual property value in this case? And why is it different to the one I specified? And if you know, Spring has roughly, 15 places where it tries to, scan properties from, so-called property sources. And it's become kind of a meme back then. Where do I have to click? Well, I just wanted to have a simple answer to maybe a simple problem, so to speak. And I think with Spring Debugger, we took that where do I have to click, as our main kind of phrase, because we wanted to give you all the information you might ever want to have about your Spring application with just one simple click. And I will show you what that one simple click is going to be. As I said, it's going to be a live coding session. We're going to imagine that I'm going to be working for a new AI startup, which means I just joined a new AI startup. As it happens on the first day, you get a nice ticket, a Utrecht ticket in this case, where we say, hey, welcome to our rocket startup. You have to work off these 9 items. We're going to work them off one by one, and then we're going to learn about Spring Debugger along the way and all the features it has. Right, so let's dive right in. The first one, your account name is Marbale, right? I don't know what to do with that, but let's save it down for now. I need to clone a repository, which I already have. And you can actually clone the same repository, and you can literally repeat everything you see me do right after the talk or with your own Spring project, whatever you like. And then the third point is run with profile dev, open localhost 8080 to see if it worked. Now, just to briefly show you what we're working with, I'm going to run the application just now, and you'll see it's just a regular Spring Boot application. It started up, and we'll check it out in a second. But what do we have here? So we have a Spring application. It's a Maven application, rather simple. Let's just have a brief look at the dependencies. Java version 21, doesn't really matter too much. We have a bit of starter data JPA. We have a bit of ThymeLeaf because it's a web-based application, a bit of starter web, a bit of Docker Compose support, which we'll also talk about later a bit later. And actually a MySQL connector because we're connecting to a MySQL database, which is booted up through the Docker Compose support. And other than that, there's really just, when you look at the packages, you have controller package, so old school model package, repository package, service package, an application that we just ran, a couple of resources with a couple of application properties, files, template, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty much a standard Spring Boot application. All right, we just booted up. Let me just refresh my home this page here, right? Localhost 8080. This is what we have. An HTML page which says, welcome to my next AI startup, which is good. Account name says undefined, right? I guess we'll have to fix that. Your display name says system test. I guess we also have to fix that. A button where we can add a random customer, and a customer list, which has 4 customers. And I guess we want to have more customers so we can sell our startup for a better price later on. All right, let's just briefly go back. Step number 3 worked. Let's see what step number 4 brings us. So make sure that account name on the HTML page shows Marbale. Add a properties file, check properties if needed. All right, so just briefly to go back here, what we had is here it shouldn't say undefined. It should say, Marbale. And I guess we can easily fix that. The way I would approach this, or you could approach this, if you don't really know the project, is let's just have a quick look at the index.html template. This is the only lone HTML template in here. We have a div here where it says account name. The name, let's just navigate to it, is being set inside a controller method, right? And it comes from a field which is called developer name. And as you can see, it says developer.account, which is a property reference. And we can simply have a look and find out what property files we have available and where that, and what the value is. So developer.account. Let's go to application properties. It doesn't say anything about developer.account. Application dev says, yes, dev, right? Application prod, developer account Alice. Application test, developer account equals Bob. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it simple because that's what it said in the ticket. Application.-marco.properties. We're going to paste it in here. We're going to say Marbale, right? I'm going to edit my run configuration. Just add my profile here. So Marco. And that should read in that properties file on startup. And hopefully then we're already done with item number 4, and we can live happily ever after. We can see 2 profiles are active, Dev and Marco, which is great. So let me just briefly check my web page, refresh it. So I'm refreshing here like a maniac, but it still says undefined. And now is the first moment where usually I would say, hey, where do I have to click? And if I had a live audience, I would ask you, hey, folks, where do I have to click? Because that is kind of now, I thought that I kind of put in the property correctly, plus the profile correctly. It still says undefined, and I have no idea what to do. As I don't really have a very fast feedback channel, I will show you a couple of ways. What you could do is you could, for example, say, hey, let's just search over the entire project and search for undefined, because it just showed undefined, but there is no undefined in the whole project. So the question is, hey, where does it actually come from? Well, the answer, or what I hinted at the beginning in the demo, is the only thing I want you to click or have to click in the future is the debug button. It's just one click, nothing else. You just click debug, and you boot up the application in debug mode, and then you'll see magic happening. So we just have started in debug mode, and I don't know if you've seen it, but already a couple of things visually changed here on the left side. You can see that some property files have been grayed out. Some have a green bubble, so to speak, here, which says, these files actually have been read in by application contexts. And the grayed out ones have been ignored. And when you go through and when you step through the individual files, you can see when I'm here inside application dev properties, you can see that the value I specified is dev, but the actual value is undefined. Same here in my application markup properties. I specified Marbil, but the value is actually undefined. Not only do you see the actual value, but when you click the link, it will actually bring you to exactly where that value was specified, where that value came from. So let me just briefly click it. And I'm being brought to a Java class, which is called First Day Prank Processor. It looks like someone put in a weird environment post-processor bean here. Let me just briefly see what it does. It post-processes the environment, so where the properties come from, or the sources rather come from. And there is one property source which gets added to it with the highest priority, which overrides any other property source. And it sets developer.account to string builder undefined in reverse, which is obviously a bit mean, but I had to put it in so that the undefined search didn't work. But really, it was just to show you that it doesn't really matter where the property is defined. It could come from a Java class. It could come from a different properties file. It could come from a system or environment variable, where we just highlighted to in a pop-up window, hey, this comes from that place, from a cloud server, cloud config server. We will bring you to the place where you actually have defined the property without you having to do anything. Just hit the debug button and you're good to go. Now, we thought the visualization and the navigation is actually quite nice. And by the way, let me just do one thing. I'll just briefly comment out that post processor, because we still have to fix our application. And then I'm just going to reboot my application real quick. I just want to figure out if that actually worked, right? So I'm just going to go here again. I'm going to refresh. Maybe I'm just going to forget the breakpoint I just set. Right. And now my account name is being displayed properly. And then we thought, well, that is quite nice. The visualization, the navigation. What else can we do? And for what else can we do? Let me just briefly put a breakpoint somewhere inside the home method here whenever we create the HTML page. Right. So we're now breaking inside here. And we thought, essentially, we never want you to leave our debugger panel down here ever again, to say it jokingly. And, you can put in random expressions down here where you can say, hey, what is my, what do my Java objects do? Evaluate some fields, some logic, whatever. And when you now go to the right side, you can see that it says Java here, but there is also a drop-down where you can say, hey, Spring Properties. And when you select Spring Properties, what you then can do is actually evaluate any property that your entire application consists of. So for example, I could say, hey, what is my spring.application.process ID? And you get auto-completion, right? So you just evaluate it here, 1945. We could say, I don't know, there's some default Kafka properties, right? Like Spring Kafka admin autocreate is being set to true, right? Developer.account, the one we specified. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to, break your flow or your context. You can actually evaluate any property you like, even detect the source. Here you can see it actually comes from application-marker properties. You can navigate to the source straight from here, and it will again bring you to the property file. And without losing context, without having to, I don't know, ask yourself, hey, where do I actually have to click? At the moment, the property evaluation is read-only. We would actually love, even though it's very tricky to implement, we would also love to make it writable. So you could actually, set some sort of properties here, and then you'd have to reload or rewire beans. At the moment, it is essentially a read-only. Let us know if you actually would also appreciate, the other way around, the writing. And I'll tell you a bit later about how to give feedback on this functionality. But for now, that is what I wanted to show you when it comes to properties. We solved, so let me just briefly go back. We solved, make sure that account name shows marble, that's fine. We saw the visualization in the project panel, the navigation capabilities, the evaluation capabilities in the debugger panel, and that's it when it comes to property support. Marit, I'll just take a tiny breath and a tiny sip of water because I can feel my throat getting a bit cracky. If we have any questions, let me know.
You're doing a lot of talking. No questions from the audience, but I did have one question that I wanted to clear up. Of course, I know the answer, but I'll let you tell them. In what version of IntelliJ IDEA is this Spring Debugger available?
Right. So what you need to do is two things, and I would have mentioned it at the end, but it's good that you're asking. No, it's good. It is. We've released the functionality as a plugin. It's called Spring Debugger plugin. You'll have to install it just once, and then it gets updated automatically, essentially. We did that to be independent of IntelliJ IDEA's release cycle and to give you much faster updates and releases.
Yep.
Now, what you'll need, however, is you need IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate. If you just have the community version, you cannot actually make the plugin work. So you also need IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate, and you need a recent IntelliJ IDEA, which means 25.2. Maybe even one, but yeah, check it out. So you can't do it with at least for 2024 and that sort of stuff.
Right. So, and they can find the plugin in the marketplace then?
They can find the plugin in the marketplace. You can just simply, go ahead, open up settings. I'll just briefly show you. Somewhere in marketplace, when you open up, Spring Debugger, and you're good to go. Install it once and live happily ever after, so to speak.
Thanks. Well, I'll let you get on with it then. Right.
Thank you very much, Marit.
Thank you.
Right, let's get on with it, because until now it looks good. We're already halfway through, which means I will be able to keep my job if we continue with that pace. Now, step number 5. Make sure that display name shows Marco Behler and check display name resolvers. Right, now let me just briefly see again what we have here on localhost 8080. Display name gives me random, it looks like it gives me random, every time I refresh the page, random stuff. We need to figure it out. The way to do that is, let me just briefly see, we're going to approach it the same way as previously. Let's just go to the index.html page. There is a variable here in the template, which is called display name. When I navigate to it, I can see that there is a method called displayNameResolver .resolve display name. And when I step into it, I can see it is a interface. And when I go to the package of the interface, I can see that essentially someone was funny enough to not just put one implementation of the interface here, but to actually put, I don't know how many these are, 12 implementations of the interface here. And now, again, the question is kind of, if I had you as a live audience, the question would be, where do I have to click? And how would I find out now which of these beans is actually loaded, active, and whatnot? And again, there are multiple ways of doing it. What people usually do is they would just go ahead again, set a breakpoint, debug in here, and then find out, hey, what is the actual type that is being injected up here for display name resolver. But again, we thought we can do better. And the way to make it better is, as you might have guessed, you just need to click one button. That one button is the debug button. So we're going to click it now. And let's boot up the application. And then you might have noticed something already again in the project pane. As with properties, what we do is we try and detect any bean that has been loaded by your application context. We gray out the beans which haven't been loaded. We actually, if you had like mocked beans through Mockito properly, not just my own mock bean, we would show them in orange. And we show you the loaded beans in white. And you can see there is a debug display name resolver, right? That's our interface. We have our mock display name resolver, which is unfortunately set to primary, which looks like kind of a bug. We have simple display name resolver, which is active for profile dev. And by the way, maybe I should have mentioned that all of these beans have different profiles set at the top. And that would be quite, worrisome to have to figure out, hey, which bean in this case actually gets loaded or overwritten. And my simple display name resolver has a key marbil, a value Marco-Behler, which sounds about right. So I'm just going to put the primary here and hope this is going to fix my problem. Let me just restart the application, and then we'll figure out what's happening here, right? So here nothing has changed because I just rewired the primary on a different bean. Refreshing gives me Marco-Behler, which is fine because now we solved that point, marbil, Marco-Behler. Again, we thought, hey, visualization is nice, but that really can't be it. And let me just show you, again, thinking back to our debugger window, what else we have in store. I'm just going to put a random breakpoint here inside customer service, get all customers. I'm going to refresh. We're breaking here. And then let me show you what else has changed with Spring Debugger. In the debugger pane or panel down here, you can see, we detect, hey, your customer service, your object, this is a bean. That's why you see these bean icons. You can actually see we bring you the bean definition in that case. So customer service is defined. You can navigate to the definition, which is at the top here, right, through the service annotation. You can see the metadata, scope singleton, for which context is active, under which profiles is it active, where it's declared, injected into, on what other beans it depends on. So we essentially try to show you all the information about a bean you ever wanted to know right here in the debugger panel. And let me just go down here. When you, for example, were calling another bean helper.trace, if I wanted to know once more, hey, where is that bean defined? I now would have to, kind of navigate around, find out, hey, helper trace, look at that, customer helper. I don't really see a annotation down here. Maybe use the gutter icon over here to navigate to it. Or just down here, again, in the debugger panel, you click navigate, and you're being brought to an XML file, which specifies the customer helper in this case. And again, the custom helper, I just put that here, the XML definition, to show you we find out where, it doesn't matter where it is, but we will tell you, hey, where has that bean actually been defined without you having to do anything. You'll get that information down here. And Another thing, by the way, I just want to show it briefly. We also try and show you this information kind of about beans. He has inlays on the right side. I usually tend to kind of forget about them. They show you the same, metadata, so to speak. Just so you're aware that we also give you all these inline hints on Spring Beans that we detect, and you might find them useful. Right. And then we thought, hey, again, navigation is nice, metadata is nice, but we saw, the property support early on, where you could evaluate any property your application consists of. And then we thought, hey, why don't we let you access any bean your application context consists of, and it doesn't have to be injected at your current breakpoint. So for example, I don't have an entity manager injected here in the class anywhere, but just down here, I can start typing. I get auto-completion for all the beans of my application context. Entity manager, let's say create query from customer. Let's see, get result list maybe. Execute it. We see, hey, we have 4 customers here. And by the way, with these customers, you can also see, right, there is a new icon. We detect that these are actually entities. And we're going to talk about that in a second as well. So we're not just, caring about Spring Beans, but also entities, database stuff. But just to briefly go back here, it doesn't really matter. Any bean your application consists of, you can evaluate down here. And again, you don't have to inject it. You don't have to switch context, lose context. You just go wild with it. And then actually, speaking about going wild with it, our developers thought, hey, let's not just put it in here or into the evaluate pop-up box. For example, also there's places where you can set line breakpoints and give conditions for these breakpoints. And again, you can even put in the bean evaluation down here inside the condition box. So you could say, hey, only break if the result list dot size in that case should be 4, right? And that will also be evaluated. And hopefully we're going to break again because we have 4 customers, right? So that worked. We have 4 customers in the list, in the database rather. That is it. Let me just briefly have a tiny look if we actually fixed that number 5. Make sure the display name shows Marco Behler. Check display name resolvers. Yeah, that is fixed. We saw the visualization. We saw navigation, and we saw evaluation of literally any bean you have in your application context. And that's what I wanted to show you on this part. Which brings us back to Marit. Marit, anything been going on in the chat?
Yeah, we do have a question. Let me bring that up for you. So Jakub Milkiewicz wants to know, how does hunting for beans differ from beans tabs in the debugger?
It's a live view. Let me just see the beans tabs. Right, you need the actuator for that exactly to work, which I haven't gotten here, and it just works without actuator. And then you have just a nice visualization right there with the evaluation, which you will not get down here from the beans tab, obviously.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yes.
And we did have another question. Let me bring that up as well. So Nirai Kumar wants to know or says, would it be nice if this plugin comes out of the box with IntelliJ? It would be easier and faster adoption. Are we planning to bundle it at some point?
Yes, we're actually planning to bundle it at some point. That is the plan. I cannot tell you when exactly, but that's the plan.
Cool. And then just in a question from Nicolas Vidard. Does the plugin work with Spring DevTools reloading?
Yeah, it should do. That, by the way, that is not to say that we haven't had, the odd bug over the last couple of months. If you find out something is not being reloaded properly or let's say redrawn or reshown properly again, just let us know. Right,
and you'll tell us how they can provide their feedback.
Yes.
Right?
Usually, I can tell you right now, marco@jetbrains.com. Very simple email address. It's my own email address. If you have any feedback, send it to me and we'll figure it out. And it's actually my real email address. So yeah, cool. Which I'll also show at the end of the talk again.
Cool, thanks. But you have more to show us, right?
I have more to show. Yes, we
Cool.
have. Hold on a second. Let's just see. We have point number 5 solved. We have at least 2 more to go. So let's see. Let's see what's going to happen next.
Then I'll move myself off the stream again and let you get to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next one. Fix broken add random customer, please. Let me just briefly have a look what's going on here. No, I should not have stopped my application. Rather, I should have pressed the button. So let's just briefly wait. Add random customer. Let me just refresh the page real quick. Right, so we're live. Add random customer. And there seems to be another breakpoint. Sorry about that. When I go here, I can see a spinning icon. I just click add random customer, spinning icon. The page isn't doing anything. And we're going to run into a timeout. And timeout for me kind of feels like a database transaction problem, right? Some sort of, could be, I don't know, multiple transactions deadlocking each other, something along those lines. And we actually have to figure it out. We have to figure out what's happening here. So I will just go back. And the question is, what do we do? You know by now that the only thing you have to do is, I'll show it once more. You'll have to click the debug button. And let me just briefly have a look at the project. There is a customer service class, which has a method create random customer. So I think we're good here to go. We're going to put a breakpoint here and try that out in a second to see what's happening. But also, I want to show you something is when I go to that package where customer service lives, you can see there are 7 different transactional services. So when I go to transaction level 1 service, you can see that it actually starts a transaction here, and it delegates to transaction level 2 service, where it processes the transaction, which delegates to level 3 service, transactional, and so on and so forth. And it's obviously a bit fake for this demonstration, but in the real world, I have seen much worse, to be honest. And you have these nested transactional methods. You never quite know where does a transaction come from, and how to trace them. With much bigger or more complex or more legacy code. And we wanted to make that as simple as possible. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go back to my page, click add random customer, right? And I just broke into my create random customer method. Now, what you might have noticed is that down here in the debugger panel, remember, we don't want you to leave. We actually detected you have a running transaction. That's why you have this transaction node here. And the transaction node, you open it up. You can see, first of all, you can see the metadata of transaction, read-only, isolation level, propagation required. You can also see the L1 cache, by the way. And just to stick with the transaction for now, you have a method, you have a link where you can say navigate to source, and that link brings you back to that very place, the first place your transaction has been opened, no matter how deep down the stack. So navigate to source will bring me actually to transaction level 1 service right here, right? And that is the annotation, which is responsible for creating the transactional proxy then, so to speak. This is where that transaction started, which is good. And we saw all that information down in the debugger panel. Now, let me just resume the program, because I said something about multiple transactions. Maybe someone is calling the method twice. Let's see what happens. So I'm just going to resume. And the application is running. Why is the application running? It shouldn't be. Let me just see. Did I miss something? No. Maybe I had the breakpoint at the wrong level. Let me just, right, sorry. I put the breakpoint after my custom repository save, which obviously already ran into the deadlock. So let me just briefly kind of click the button again. Let me just see the page, right? Add random customer. That's the first time. resume, and now we hit the method the second time. Now the second time, it looks a bit different. What I mean by that is, you can see that we have a new transaction. It says it started here, transaction level 5, right? We even show you that there's a parent transaction, and that is, logically, transaction level 1 service, the one you just saw, and we split off from that transaction. Why? Because this new transaction has propagation behavior requires new. So that means it doesn't matter if you already have an existing transaction running, we will always create a new one. And again, you can see all of that down here in the debugger panel. Let me just briefly navigate to the source, right? You can see that is exactly the method I was talking about. Someone put propagation requires new here, which shouldn't be the case. And by the way, the second call to customer create random customer also shouldn't be the case somewhere here. And that should hopefully fix the problem. Let me just, uncomment the code, restart it, and let's see what actually happened if we kind of fixed that method. So here's the web page, add random customer. Yes, we just hit the breakpoint. Let me just go back, and you can see, yes, now we can actually add random customers all day long, whatever we want, to our database. And as I mentioned early on, maybe sell our startup later on for a higher price with more customers. Again, that was to show that transaction tracing, which is usually quite tricky in the real world, is now rather simple. Just debug, we detect there's a transaction running, and you get all the information you ever wanted, hopefully ever wanted, down in the debugger tool panel. I will just hit the breakpoint once more, because there's one last thing I wanted to show you. I already mentioned it earlier. When we detect, hey, you're creating a new customer object here, we actually know it's an entity. And when we just call new customer, that entity is transient. It's not yet added to a persistence context, saved to database, which is why we also show you, hey, this is a transient entity down here. It has no ID in this case. And then once we step over, create the next method down here. Sorry, I need to write. We can see that now the entity is managed. Again, Hibernate entities, we detected. Now that it's being managed, it should be in the L1 entity cache. So you can see it down here as well. The same will also work if you did queries. You see your L1 entity cache. We keep track of your entities. Again, you don't need to do anything. And as I mentioned before, we also try to show you these inline hints at the end of a line where you also get the additional metadata without any extra clicks. Now, let me just see. To go back, it just said fix broken add random customer, please. I think we did that. I think that's also everything I wanted to show you when it comes to transaction tracing so far. Which brings us back to Marit. Marit, come back again once more, please. Yeah. Don't you like your database transactions?
So I did have one more question, although we have also Andre and Siva in the chat, and
right.
Andre is already also answering the questions.
Right.
But Jakub had another question. Does it work with Spring Webflux?
Right. And I'm just reading Andre's answer. The answer being not yet. Reactive transactions are not properly supported. For everyone who's not reading the chat fully, I can just read out these answers to you. Yep.
So, yeah, Andre beat you to it, but that's because you were busy demoing.
Yes. Andre Siva, thank you very much for answering these questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have the team who actually, work on this stuff and develop it, being available. If you have any questions, just bring them to the chat.
Yeah, no, Andre is already answering them. So no open questions at the moment.
Right.
So did you want to show us anything else, or?
I did, Mari, we're not done yet. Point number 6, number 6, we need to figure out number 7 first, and then 8, 9, and then we're through.
Okay, so then I'll let you get right back to it.
Thank you.
See you later.
See you later. So number 7. make sure to be able to connect to the dev database spawned through Docker Compose a bit fiddly. That one's interesting because for anyone who isn't really, I mean, it depends on your, on your Spring Boot version. As I mentioned, the Docker Compose support, which is relatively newish in terms it's not like 10 years old. So we have a Compose YAML file. We have that. We have the Docker Compose support in our POM XML. And once we run the application, what happens is we actually execute the Compose YAML file, which in this case means we're taking a MySQL latest database with a couple of environment variables and booting it up on a random port. Random port because actually this is the container port, but this will be my host port. If we leave out, the host port, we will actually get a random port. And the interesting thing now, the interesting question is now, how do we actually connect to this database in the real world? Which is where I would, ask again, folks, hey, where do I have to click? And there's, again, as before, there are a couple of workarounds. So what people usually do is they give static ports, and then you have 10 microservices, and then you just try to make sure, they all, they're all in subsequent numbers. And then some people go and actually go through the Docker Compose support window, and then, just try to figure out somewhere down here, hey, there's a dashboard, and somewhere it says, the real database port. And then you hopefully you go to the database tool window, and then you kind of try and add, the right MySQL database, and, with the right, hopefully you haven't forgotten your port number by now. And it's all a bit of a pain. Again, we try to make that simpler. Simpler is you just click the debug button. And then this is usually where the real magic that everyone loves happens, because when you click the debug button, what you will see is that we actually also, I have run this a couple of times. That's why you see all this, these connections. But now for my Spring Debugger application run configuration, you see a database group down here. You can see that there is a database, which is called, let me just have a brief look. That is very unfortunate that we have this bug down here. I just need to briefly try something out. I wanted to show you that not only is the database here, but you can simply then look at all the tables immediately, because we try to import the database with the right username, with the password, and with the right database. But I've hit a tiny bug, which usually I do not hit. Let me just see. I need to switch my driver files. You shouldn't have seen that. Whoops. Let me just deny this. Right. And now, sorry, just imagine you haven't seen, this not working for the last minute. You should have just, clicked that little triangle here and then be able to see your database. Yeah, right. So actually what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to click the debug button again, just once more. So you'll see, how it actually should behave. And this is how it should behave. You should see a database. You should see your tables without you having to do anything. That's because we run through your application context. We import any data source you have. So it's not just about one database. It could be 10 databases. It has to be a relational database at the moment, or a MongoDB we also import. But it doesn't matter, MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, whatever have you, they will end up here, and you will be able to, open up the tables, go through them, and just, that's it. And just so you don't get the wrong idea, this has nothing to do with Docker Compose support. It just happens that we just, booted out the application. That's the data source which is being used for it. But you can also use it for testing. And for testing, let me show you something else. I have a customer service test. And the customer service test uses test containers. So completely, independent of Docker Compose. And we boot up a MySQL container here. Again, MySQL latest. We don't know the port number, which again would be a big, hey, where do I have to click? And actually, I just want to debug inside this method, what I'm doing right now. I'm debugging Now we have to wait a tiny second until the database connection becomes available for MySQL to boot up. Right, here we go. And then when I open up the database tool window, you can see, hey, we have a new entry here for run configuration customer service test.test create random customer. This is our test database. And especially for tests with test containers, it's such a pain to really figure out, hey, what is now that random port number? How can we, do that? And now you don't need to do anything. You just have the database available, and you can write your queries and live happily ever after. Right, that is quite cool. Let me just double check again. Make sure to be able to connect to a dev database. Yes, we can. Again, it doesn't matter. Docker Compose, test containers. You have no such support. You just connect to a good old database. We try to detect your data sources, and we import them for you automatically. Right, which brings us to maybe Marit again. Marit again once more. Once more, Marit.
Hi.
Hi.
So we did have another question that
Yes.
Andre already answered, but let me bring it up anyway.
Yes.
So Peter asked, I guess you're able to recognize beans created and registered at runtime, even if I use ByteBuddy, but will I also be able to see the generated source code? To which Andre said, we experimented with Spring Data AOT, and you can debug generated sources as long as their folder is marked as generated sources.
Right, that is very well said. couldn't have said it better myself.
So, but then we had another question. So let's see if you can answer it before Andre this time. Sarah wants to know, you have the database password in your project. Will that work if the password is stored externally, like in a properties file outside the project?
Well, again, at some point, you have to pass the database, the password, doesn't matter where it comes from, somehow to your Spring Boot application context. So we can create a bean, which is called the data source bean, and we just detect that data source bean. So it happens at a later stage, independent of where the password originally comes from. And then we just auto import your data source, and that's it. And your data source knows. It knows your username. It knows your password. It knows the URL it connects to. That's the thing it reps essentially.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Then let me just briefly finish off that ticket and then see where else. What else is going to happen?
Okay, thanks.
Right. So to finish off, it looks like we kind of made that work. 1 to 7, great. Someone crossed out these other tickets. I thankfully don't have to work through anymore. Thank you, which is good. It looks like we can keep our job at that new AI startup. Now, to finish off with a tiny bit of presentation, we have plans for Spring Debugger. This is essentially what you can work with right now, right away. When you download the Spring Debugger plugin later on, plans we have is we would like to work on cacheable support. Cacheable support, meaning that, right, you should be able to kind of, for example, see when you have a method annotated with that cacheable, which objects are in the cache or what keys are in the cache, and then being able to evict them, for example, with a mouse click. So again, get all that information, being able to break into cache methods, even though they wouldn't break otherwise. Events tracing, finding out where an event actually came from throughout your project. HTTP tracing, some Spring key support on having the HTTP request available at any place, wherever you break inside your application. Spring security support, visualizations around Spring security. It's a super difficult framework to work around, to find your way around. And these are all just ideas. What is really important for you, that you keep dreaming and you figure out, hey, what kind of support would you like to see? Where do you, lose most of your time on a day-to-day basis? What are the problems you run into when debugging your Spring applications? And then think about all these issues. And we will try to come up, with features inside Spring Debugger to essentially solve these issues once and for all for you. So we will we will actually listen to your feedback. we will reprioritize. Just give it a try and let us know what you would like to see solved next. Which brings us back to feedback. If you have any feedback regarding Spring Debugger, send it to marco@jetbrains.com. I read every single email. It might be that you get a response a tiny bit later. But we really appreciate and want your feedback to make Spring Debugger plugin as kick-ass as possible. Now, this is the end of the presentation where I usually say, hey, do you have any questions? The only question not allowed is where do I have to click? But yeah, that is it. That is all I wanted to show you. Really, the only thing which I've mentioned or which we've shown before already is go to Marketplace, or rather go to the plugin sections inside IntelliJ IDEA, download the plugin, and then just benefit from it right in 5 minutes. And that's all you have to do. Marit, has anything else happened since the last 60 seconds? I hadn't seen you.
So no open questions right now. Andre did have an addition. In addition to your plans, is that we're working on remote debug for apps running in a container, but you need to open debug port to be able to connect to the app.
Yep.
So yeah, we have all kinds of ideas of other stuff that we can do, and of course are open to suggestions. And also Simon wanted to say thank you for the interesting presentation, which I wholeheartedly agree with.
You all are very welcome.
So
I'm going to agree with Simon there. It was super, super interesting. So thank you both very much.
Yep. Just a quick question, Marco. Maybe you can share the repo again and we can post the link in the show notes as well, Kim?
Yep, we can do that.
Yes.
For people who want to try this at home.
Where do you want me to share that right now?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So either you just type this off, or I'll just try and send a comment through the comment section. Let me just see, and then you should be able to see it in a second. So that works. The source repository. Right, so unfortunately, I just got the comment has failed to post because it contains a link, which is a bit unfortunate. But to make it really simple, and this is where my name comes in again. Sorry for just highlighting my name. GitHub.com Marco Behler, however you want to pronounce it, Spring Debugger. That is the repository. Just clone it, work with it, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, I managed to post a link from inside StreamYard, Marco. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
In case people want to play with that.
Right.
All right. Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for that session, and hope to have both of you back real soon. And to the VJug community, thank you so much for joining us again. Please do make sure to follow us across Blue Sky, X, LinkedIn, and our meetup page to see when the next session will be. And I believe the next one will be the 14th of October, and we are going to do a VJug Connect. So we're bringing you a live session from the LJC, the London Java User Group, and we'll be broadcasting it here. So do check that out and sign up. But until next time, take care and look after yourselves.
Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.